I'm back, Biffy. Let me know when Rosemary's on the line. Biffy, I just got a note from Brad. He has another station at 9:30, so we'll get him on at 9:10 and get him out maybe by 9:25 at the latest. Okay. Yep. Well, I know I got him on the 9:10 segment, so we'll get him right. That should give us time. That'll give us time. Yep. Alrighty, works for me. was. Okay. Yeah, I didn't catch that. Do they even mention Josh Gary, or it's purely an anti-Maroney ad, right? Josh Gary, yeah. Yep. It is. I was just talking to Rocky yesterday, wondering when we're going to start to hear some of these things. So I guess I got my answer. Okay, that's the first time I've heard it. Okay, good. We could use the business. Let's hope so.
Growth and recovery. Go to helpandhopewv.org for more information.
Highland Sports Complex is the coolest destination for sports and entertainment the Ohio Valley has ever seen. Pop in for some open basketball in our field house or reserve some turf time for your next practice or game on our synthetic fields. Online registration is open for development classes and leagues for youth and adults. Highland Sports is also the hottest destination for birthday parties and other events. So come challenge yourself on our play climb and enjoy your favorite virtual reality game in the arcade. No memberships required, so visit highlandsports.com to find your next entertainment experience and get ready to reach new heights.
Hello, everyone. From the Watchdog, I'm Darnell Foster. Weather look at your local weather forecast for your Thursday. Under partly sunny skies, temperatures are near 75 for the daytime high, near 52 for the overnight reading under partly cloudy conditions. We'll call it a breezy, cooler day under mostly sunny skies for your Friday, with highs near 66. Have yourself a great day, everyone. From the Watchdog, I'm Darnell Foster.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of this station or its sponsors.
News, information, conversation, controversy, and fun. This is the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe.
Well, we have a lot that we have been talking about and a lot more we will talk about. In just a minute, we're going to talk about homelessness in the city of Wheeling. Federal court yesterday okayed Wheeling's plans to dismantle some homeless camps, but did put some guidelines into effect that they have to follow before the camps can be dismantled. Meanwhile, this week at Wheeling City Council, there was discussion from a couple of council members about a need for a greater coordinated effort to deal with homelessness in the friendly city. We'll talk to Rosemary Ketchum, councilwoman, about that in just a minute or two. Governor Justice is tweaking his COVID plans again. What a big surprise. It's another day. It's another tweak from the governor. Brad McElhaney from Statewide Metro News will be in to help us look at that and some of the other things happening statewide, including the governor's plans to deal with WVU and so on. That's coming up in the next hour of the show. A Hurricane restaurant, I should say, is taking the state to court over its use of executive authority to shut businesses down. I think they are in some ways on the right track, but I think their legal arguments are not going to hold adequate water, in my opinion, as a layman. COVID numbers in Ohio County are still going the wrong way, and the county seems to be gold now, or orange, depending on what map you're looking at. But school officials do, and we'll have to wait till Saturday's map comes out to see for sure. But at this moment, Ohio County school officials plan a return to a 4-day in-seat classroom starting on Monday. The NFL is losing big bucks with no fans. We talked about that right before the break. And $616 million just for the Dallas Cowboys. $616 million in loss to the Dallas Cowboys over the course of their 8-game season by not having any fans in the stands. $77 million per game. Forbes magazine is where my info comes from. That's the number one team that's losing the most, but all teams are losing a lot more of them are now going to begin to try and bring a few fans into the stands. So they're going to lose sponsorship money. They're losing, selling T-shirts and ball caps and so on. The tickets themselves, of course, concessions. And one of my, off the text line at 304-214-1600, texter says, Howard, what about all the nearby businesses being destroyed by no fans stopping before or afterwards? Yeah, and there have been a couple of stories about this on Metro News in Morgantown in particular. You know, the bars, the restaurants, the hotels in Morgantown, Brother Biff, benefit greatly from all the fans coming to see the games, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, think about it. They need a place to stay. You need a place to go eat lunch, dinner, or both. And think about the little gas stations and all the stores, because you got to have snacks and beer.
Absolutely right. So, but those things won't be around in any great abundance, at least, as a result of fewer fans in the stands. So, a good point the listener makes is not just the direct loss to the teams in game revenue, but it's also the loss to the community for the nearby bars, restaurants, gas stations. Yeah, how many Cheetos do they sell during a game? And weather-wise, it's going to be a okay day today. 77, the predicted high. That's about seasonable for this time of year. Mixture of sun and clouds during the day. Currently, we might see even a stray sprinkle this afternoon. Currently, we're looking at 57 degrees at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport, and 57 here at my home studios. And it's foggy a little bit outside. 57 degrees at the Robinson Auto Group Studios, downtown Wheeling, in the heart of the Ohio Valley. We talked quite a good bit last week, 2 weeks ago. I guess it was 2 weeks ago when the first decision came down from actually it's the second decision. They did it earlier in the year, but in this occasion, City of Wheeling has decided to dismantle some of the homeless camps along the creek bank, property owned by the Department of Highways. Police chief says there's a huge amount of bad activity going on there. Felony fugitives are found there. Hypodermic needles are found there. They've had domestic abuse calls and sexual abuse calls. And so they're going to dismantle those camps. The ACLU got involved and said, nah, wait a minute. You know, you can't just throw this population of people out into the streets any more than they already are without some kind of proper preparation. Issue went to court yesterday, and Judge John Bailey said basically, yes, you can dismantle the camps, but you have to do it under strict regulations. When this issue came up a couple of weeks ago, I began saying, I think what we need to do is have a more coordinated effort to deal with the problem of homelessness. Whether it's people complaining about the camps, whether it's people who complain about the guys on the street corner, at Perkins or elsewhere with their signs out, and people just get angry about it. There's a great deal of disdain felt for the homeless, and I think that's because we don't think of them as human beings, and they really are. That's my opinion, though. And this week at Wheeling City Council, two of the new members of council, both Ben Seidler and Rosemary Ketchum, suggested it's time for a little more coordinated effort. And I invited Rosemary to join us this morning to talk about that. Rosemary, good morning.
Good morning, Howard. Thank you so much for having me on.
This is an issue that you have been concerned with for a long time. This is not homelessness and other cases of folks who are sort of the downtrodden, if you will, are not. This is not a new concern of yours. It's one you've had for some time. But I thought you and Councilman Seidler both had really good suggestions this week that we can't just tear down camps and move on. We've got to have a more coordinated effort. Tell me what, in your mind, you're thinking of.
Well, Howard, you are right. Tearing down camps, honestly, just addresses a symptom of a much larger issue. I think that homelessness exists at the intersection of mental illness and poverty and trauma and so many of the other things that we oftentimes leave unaddressed. And so, yes, I ran on a platform to empower and protect our most vulnerable community members. It's not only a moral issue, but it's also an economic issue here in the city of Wheeling. So, for the longest time, I've also acknowledged the importance of coordinating these efforts. I work in social services. There are people who are doing the best work anywhere in the country, I think, here in Wheeling. but some of the coordination is fragmented. So it was my proposal at our first Health and Recreation Committee, I'm the chair. It was my proposal to create a new commission, task-oriented commission dedicated to working and coordinating these issues called the Vulnerable Communities Commission. And so that was proposed and passed committee, and hopefully will also pass the full council.
There are some who would say, Rosemary, that this is a social issue and it's not a government issue. This is not something city government needs to be involved in. Leave this work to the agencies, the Coalition for the Homeless, Salvation Armies, the freeze shelters, and those kinds of things. But it's not really something the government ought to be involved in. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, and honestly, that is the sentiment of some members of our city government, that we should take a hands-off approach and that we should, try to support social services, but we shouldn't be a player on the field. I have contention with that. I think that, we are tasked in our charter, in our comprehensive plan, with protecting our community and improving the quality of life here in the city of Wheeling. And that doesn't just mean for people who live in Woodsdale or, in the nicer parts of our community. That means everyone. And if we have a disproportionate amount of people living in encampments and in tents or free shelters throughout our city, that is, I think, a call to action to city government. Regardless of whether we think that we should be involved, we ought to be involved. It is not just a, economic issue. It is an issue of humanity, and I think we are called to action to address this. And hey, I don't want anybody typing in the city of Wheeling to Google and getting a lawsuit, as one of their first search items. I want to make sure we can tackle this so that we can really make good on the promise that we are the friendly city. So I push back on that a little. I think we don't need to necessarily do this alone. I mean, we have plenty of social service organizations and experts who are doing this work already. We just need to give them platform, and I think the full effort of our city government to aid them in this crisis.
Well, I think coordination is a key word there. Somebody has got to sort of take the lead on pulling everything together. And quite frankly, also looking beyond just what do we do with, air quotes, them next, but rather how do we solve the problem to begin with? Now, I know that we're not going to solve the problem of homelessness. I don't know that Jesus ever said the homeless will always be with us, but he said the poor, and I think he included the homeless in his mind when he said that. So we're not going to solve the problem, get rid of the problem. But if we don't address root causes, if we don't go beyond just saying we're going to move them out of here and move them over here, and I think the freeze shelter, for example, is a great thing to have, but if we don't do more than just say we'll give you a place to go when it's cold, somebody's not doing their job. And I don't know that government's the right place for it, but it's part of the place for it, I think.
Right. I do think you're right. Like I said before, homelessness is at the intersection of a lot of other issues, including substance use disorder. And if we only focus on a single one, we really are not addressing the root or the cause problems. And I work in mental health. I know mental illness is a huge component of the lives and lived experience of so many of our homeless community. So we need a comprehensive and holistic effort. And my vision, more broadly, is to focus on poverty, because that is, I think, the through line. I have lived in poverty my whole life. Members of my family have experienced homelessness circumstantially. And substance, abuse is a part of my family as well. So I think I have a uniquely, a unique set of experiences to kind of see this problem. And I absolutely understand that this is not a one-size-fits-all solution. And we need to pull in the players who can address this from all sides. And that is our healthcare folks, that is our homeless advocates, and that is also our mental health professionals.
Talking to Wheeling Councilwoman Rosemary Ketchum this morning here on the Watchdog Morning Show. It's 8:22. Poverty is the root cause of so much. Now, let's be clear. There are some other issues beyond poverty that affect, in particular, the homeless. As you point out, mental health issues, drug addiction issues, although very often those are tied to poverty as well. And it's not just even homelessness. I'm thinking about couple of years ago when we were talking about teacher reform, education reform in West Virginia. And the bottom line we kept hearing on that is, we can talk about size of classrooms, and we can talk about, more money for teachers, and we can talk, but until we solve the problem of too many of our people, especially in West Virginia, live in poverty, education reform will not really occur until we have economic reform, I guess. And I think the same thing is true with homelessness. We won't make a significant dent until we begin to deal with the root cause, which is to a large extent poverty. I don't have the magic pill for that. Please don't misunderstand me. But until we begin to acknowledge that this goes much deeper than just, some bum who doesn't want to go find a job, until we acknowledge that's not really the issue, we'll never solve the problem.
You're 100% right. These issues are chronic and systemic and not, I think, uncommon. We might experience a unique problem here in the city of Wheeling, but throughout the state of West Virginia, poverty is a through line in our history and in our lived experience. And I know many other, leaders throughout the state who are working on combating poverty. There is no single, magic, bullet or wand that can solve these issues. But I think, we have the opportunity here in the city of Wheeling to lead the state in what it looks like to protect our communities and empower people and give people opportunity to, uplift out of poverty. I think we have the opportunity to do that. We just need the personal courage and the impatience, let's say, to get that done.
But Rosemary, what do you think about the city's plans to dismantle these camps now under some additional guidelines from Judge Bailey? But Chief Schwarzenegger, I thought, made a pretty compelling case when he listed some numbers when this thing first came down in terms of the number of felony fugitives they found at these homeless camps, the number of cases of sexual abuse, the number of cases of domestic assault that they've had there, the number of hypodermic needles they find there, the reality we know there's drug use going on there in some cases. The chief makes a pretty strong case that the location of these things is a problem for the city. So do we dismantle them? Are we on the right track or partly the right track there or not?
Well, it's no doubt that the criminal element of any community needs to be addressed. The acts of sexual violence or assault are unacceptable, and we need law enforcement to be able to make determinations there. But it's important not to conflate homelessness with crime, and I think that forever we've done that. And I know many homeless people in my work who do not commit crimes, do not assault people, but maybe on the other end of that. And so if that isn't a call to action, even more so that we need long-term strategic plans for housing people to end homelessness, to protect their lives. I don't know what is. So I understand where the chief is coming from a law and order standpoint, and I hope and believe that they will continue to help keep our communities safe. But there will always be people who break the law. That's just what being human is like in in our society. But we need to make sure that we are not criminalizing the poor. We're not criminalizing folks who have no other place to go. And honestly, when you put people in such a desperate and traumatic situation, I can't imagine them acting with their full mental capacity. And that, of course, is not to marginalize or make excuses for criminal behavior. But it does tell me as a city official that we need stronger solutions and I think more unapologetic direction when it comes to housing our homeless community.
I've said before, the first thing we ought to do is simply arrest the criminals. Whether they're homeless folks or whether they're my next door neighbor, if someone is committing sexual assault or domestic abuse or is harboring a felony fugitive or doing drugs, I want those individuals to be arrested and prosecuted and so on. Maybe with a little bit more understanding, particularly in the homeless community, as to why they're doing that stuff. But nonetheless, go after the criminals. If there is in my neighborhood, if I discover that my next door neighbor is abusing his spouse, and I report to the police, I don't expect the police to come and to throw everybody out of my neighborhood because there's a bad apple next door to me. I expect them to come and deal with the bad apple next door to me. And I'm not criticizing the chief, because I do understand it's a really difficult issue. But it does seem to me that arrest the lawbreakers, help those who can't otherwise help themselves. And I guess the other thing, Rosemary, is the bottom line is it becomes a game of whack-a-mole anyways. If you think the homeless folks need to be moved, they're going to go somewhere else anyway, and they're not probably going to go out of town. They're just going to go somewhere else in town.
Correct. And you know, it gets me thinking, the word coordination. Yes, we need coordination through our, homeless community and through the social services. But, to be frank, we need coordination through our city government so that we're all on the same page and that so we're all aware of what's happening at any given moment. And I think, we also, I want to be able to support the chief in his ability to do his work. And that also includes us finding a solution or being part of the solution-making process to help our homeless community. Because, like you said, we could dismantle these camps. They would be someplace else, because we forget that these folks are friendly city folks. These are Wheeling people who want to live in this city, not because they are able to mooch off the system like so many people may believe, but because they love the city of Wheeling and they want to try hard to be contributing members of our community. And we need to give them every opportunity to do so. And I think as city government, a hands-on approach is the way to go.
When I say the next thing to some people, they tell me, not me, wouldn't happen to me. I frequently try to point out to people that for a vast majority of those who we consider to be the homeless, it could be any one of us. Yes, there are people with mental illnesses, and yes, there are people with drug addictions, but there are plenty of people there whose circumstances have simply led them to being without a place to live. And it could be any of us. If we lose our job, we don't have family, and what have you. Any one of us could find ourselves in that in those tent cities if we hit the wrong circumstances.
You're 100% right. 10 years ago, my family had a house fire, and we were homeless for almost a year. And it was an intense and formative experience for me and my younger siblings. And maybe that's why I feel so closely related to this issue. But we are all one step away from this traumatic experience of being homelessness. So we shouldn't let our egos get in the way. And we should try our best to see this issue with compassion and the willingness to find common ground.
Rosemary, I've been impressed in the past several months with the number of folks who seem to be showing this kind of compassion. Had a little peaceful rally in front of the courthouse this week, the federal courthouse, having to do with, taking note of the hearing on the ACLU suit. There was a couple of Black Lives Matter events that happened around here that had, I think, a lot of folks taking part in them peacefully, quietly, professionally, if you will. I've been impressed with how many people we do have around here who seem to be willing to step up to the plate these days and make themselves known on a more progressive front like this.
Yeah, and I think that the state of West Virginia and Wheeling, unfortunately, we're often not given the benefit of the doubt. And if anybody knows me, they know I'm probably more progressive, than the average bear. And so I think for me, I am heartened to see these acts of peaceful protest and, people advocating for what they believe in. I think it's a great sign for the Valley that people feel comfortable, but also impassioned to express themselves in this way. As many folks know, I started out as a community organizer and a protester, and, it's still some of my favorite work. And, I support anybody who's willing to stand up for what they believe in a peaceful way.
What kind of response have you had, if any, since the meeting on Tuesday? You and Councilman Seidler both brought this issue up. As you point out, you brought it up at the committee meeting last week. So it's had a chance to sort of percolate in the community. Have you gotten much response or comment?
Absolutely. I mean, everyone is willing to come to the table, and the last thing I want is for people to believe that there is no work being done, because there are incredibly hard workers out there. YSS, Ohio County FRN, Project Hope, the Homeless Coalition, Soup Kitchens. I mean, everybody is at the table, and I think that for me, while I see that, I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to help guide that strategic planning as a community. And so, I've had, overwhelming amount of folks reach out who know how to help, who want to help. Some folks who aren't sure how they can help, but they want to lend a hand. I think what we're seeing is the best parts of our community come forward and put all hands on deck. Because we understand how critical this issue is, particularly right now. We are only a couple weeks from winter, or a couple months from winter, and so this issue has never been more critical this year. And I think that people realize the serious of timing right now. So yes, people are coming forward, and if you're listening and you're interested in figuring out how you play a role in this situation and how you'd like to help, please reach out to me. My cell phone number is 304-650-8727. I'd love to work with you.
Rosemary, appreciate your time this morning, as always. You bring a really thoughtful and different approach to council. I knew that the new council was going to take us off in a slightly different direction, and you guys have certainly done that. And I mean that in a very good way. We're tackling some issues that I have not seen tackled quite so, I won't say aggressively, but have not been on the front burner for quite some time. So I think this is really good stuff, and I appreciate you. I appreciate your efforts, and I appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, Howard. I appreciate it.
All right. Have yourself a great day. Wheeling Councilwoman Rosemary Ketchum. Boy, it's true, though, Biffy. I said this new council was going to, bring a little different approach to things, and they certainly have. All three of the new council members, in particular Rosemary, and also Councilman Seidler, who was with us earlier this week or last week on neighborhood nuisance issues, and Jerry Sklavonakis has been vocal on a couple of things. It's a different take on some city issues, and so there's a real different feel to this council. Not a bad feel, not a fighting each other kind of feel. I don't mean it that way. I just mean these guys and gals are bringing a different look, a different approach to issues being tackled by the city. And I don't know about you, Biffy, I think that's a good thing.
No, I do too. I mean, it's always nice to have a, different point of view or perspective. I mean, you might see something one way and they might see it the other way, and you talk about it and you figure out which way's the best to go. I mean, if anything, it makes it more interesting instead of agreeing with everything and stuff like that. So I think it's good as well.
Yeah, and these are some issues that have been out there for a while. They've not been unknown, but they've not been front burner issues. The neighborhood nuisance issues that we talked to Ben Seidler about, junk cars in the, in people's yards and overgrown grass and so on. Doesn't seem like a big deal, but it is a big deal for many people, what I call neighborhood nuisance issues. And then the issue of homelessness, it's been around. We know it. We talk about it. Council talks about it, but has in the past. But now it's kind of moving to the front burner. I also find it interesting, and I may be reading this wrong, and Mayor Elliott can certainly text me or call me if he'd like to right now and tell me I'm wrong. It is interesting that Mayor Elliott seems to be a little bit on this issue of moving the homeless camp right now. He seems to be a little bit more on the side of the city, a little bit more on the side of, no, this is the right thing to do. We've got to deal with the reality of the criminal activity there than some of his newer colleagues are, which I suppose after being 4 years as mayor, you begin to identify with city, I don't say bureaucracy, I don't mean it in a negative way, but you tend to identify more with city authority as opposed to other things, I guess. And maybe that's a good dichotomy too between the new guys and gal who have a different approach to it. So it's interesting. Yesterday, as I mentioned real quick, the federal judge John Bailey, after a hearing, said that the city can dismantle those camps. However, they have to do a few things ahead of time. Let me just run these down real quick. He did set some guidelines. The city of Wheeling has to post notices of their intended action and in places where the people who are going to be impacted can actually read them. That makes sense. They have to post them at least 2 weeks prior to the intended action, which I think they had done, but I think they're going to do it again now. The city must provide at least 2 weeks written notice to the Greater Coalition for the Homelessness, to Project Hope, and any other group or agency requesting to be included in the notification process. And on the day when the crews show up to dismantle any encampment, the crews must give anybody who is there 2 hours to remove their personal property. In other words, they can't just bring in the bulldozer, so to speak, and begin to bulldoze things up. I don't know if they'll actually bring in bulldozers, but that's the image I'm using here. They can't just walk into the camp and dismantle it. They have to give them 2 hours to get the belongings together and get them out somewhere. So those are some of the guidelines that Judge Bailey set down yesterday. Also ordered the city to select a new date for removing the camps. The original date had been a couple of weeks ago, and then they put it off until tomorrow was the next date scheduled. Now they're going to pick a new date. I don't know if they have picked a new date or not. Maybe I'll get them. I'm going to try and get the chief to come in and talk about this maybe next week if he will be willing to do that. And the chief's usually pretty willing to take on tough issues, so we'll see if he can come in and talk about it. We'll find out. All right, it's 8:39, 21 to the hour here on the Watchdog Morning Show. Going back into the sports world in a minute or two with Tony Caridi and our Mountaineer Report, and also the Big Ten is coming back, Biffy, which means for us, among other things, looks like Ohio State football is back on WVLY. So we'll have the Mountaineers and the Buckeyes this year. So we'll talk about all of that coming up in a minute or two. And a little bit later on, Brad McElhenney is dropping by from Metro News, and he and I will talk about the latest changes made by the governor in his maps and his COVID policies and so on. It's all coming up here on this Thursday edition of the Watchdog Morning Show. But first, Ohio Valley headlines.
The WTRF Channel 7 News Update is brought to you by Thomas Auto Centers, Mall Road, St. Clairsville. Get the best deal at Thomas Auto Centers.
Now it's
Back in a minute, Biff. I'm back.
have, there's a lot of potential there, and there's a lot of competition. If we can mirror that competition in that room across our whole team, that's our goal in recruiting, then we'll be in a good situation.
Remember the name, Sam Brown. He not only excelled in football at New Hampstead High School in Savannah, Georgia, he also excelled in baseball and track. In fact, he finished second in the Georgia State long jump. That is today's Mountaineer Report, brought to us by Kroger, the official grocer of WVU Athletics. I'm Tony Caridi on the Mountaineer Sports Network from Learfield, IMG College.
The perfect cure for your quarantine blues. The Watchdog on Facebook Live. Watch The Watchdog weekdays on Facebook Live, beginning with the morning show with Howard Monroe at 7 a.m. Local talk radio, Watchdog style. Give us a call and tell us what you're thinking. Locally, 304-214-1600. Out of the area, toll free, 866-514-1600 or 304-232-8255.
A serious injury from an accident can be just the start of your worries. What if you cannot return to work? How do you take care of your family if you're disabled? At Gelner Law Offices, we represent seriously injured people and understand their problem. We know how to get you fair compensation. We will work hard to make sure you get the money you deserve for your losses. Don't go it alone. If you're hurt in an accident, call us at 304-242-2900 or visit us at gelnerlaw.com.
We'd like to help.
Hey, I'm going to the kitchen. Can I grab you a Coors Light?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Huh. I never knew there was a zip line in my fridge. Hey, buddy! Yeah! You got 2 Coors Lights up there? You got it!
Always brewed down to 34 degrees. With a taste as cold as the Rockies, only Coors Light gives you refreshment every time.
Here you go. 2 Coors Lights. Awesome, man. Wow, these are really cold. That's the only way I deliver it. Sure. I mean, you being a mountain climber and all? Yep. You probably need a pretty warm coat in there, huh? Yep.
Hey, Ben!
Yeah!
Ask him if he has any nachos.
You got any nachos in there? No. Just icy cold Coors Light? Yep. That makes sense. It is the Rockies.
Coors Light, the world's most refreshing beer. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. With great beer comes great responsibility.
Hello, everyone. From the Watchdog, I'm Darnell Foster. Weather look at your local weather forecast for your Thursday. Under partly sunny skies, temperatures are near 75 for the daytime high, near 52 for the overnight reading under partly cloudy conditions. We'll call it a breezy, cooler day under mostly sunny skies for your Friday, with highs near 66. Have yourself a great day, everyone. From the Watchdog, I'm Darnell Foster.
He may have the voice of an angel, but his face has more of a Hell's Angel vibe. He's Bill DeFabio. Weekdays noon to 2. Only on Watchdog Radio. And now Facebook Live.
Live and local for the Ohio Valley. The Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe continues.
Well, we're just past the halfway mark here on the Thursday edition of the show, and if you have just joined us at this stage of the game, we have talked about homelessness, haircuts, coffee, COVID, the NFL. Coming up, we'll talk about the governor and color-coded maps with Brad McElhinney. A little bit more on the NFL action over the weekend that I want to get into, and we'll be talking about Thanksgiving, because we talked about what stores are open, what stores are closed before. I have a little bit better information on that for Thanksgiving 2020 that I'll get to a little bit later on. We just heard, of course, from Tony Caridi and the Mountaineer Report, a regular part of our show in this half hour every day. And then we have more sports conversation coming up this evening here on the Watchdog. Tonight it is the Neil Brown Show, the coach's show on both of our radio stations, WKKX and WVOY, beginning at 6 o'clock. Then when that is over, at 8 o'clock, it is the coach's show from Ohio State University, beginning at 8 on WVOY. And on WKKX, Biffy, the Bengals and Browns are playing tonight as well.
Yes, they are. A little Thursday night football for you tonight.
So we got all that coming up tonight. Before that, of course, Bill DeFabio's Variety Show is back today. Bill is back after having been away for a few days. He'll be with us shortly after the 12 o'clock noon news live from the news desk of WTRF TV. And after that, this afternoon, the afternoon drive beginning at 2 o'clock. And today it is Dancing with Dr. G, the Donnie Gilbert radio show, which I believe is going to be at Quaker Steak and Lube again today. So check into all of that. A busy day for us here on the Watchdog Radio Network.
And Howard, I don't know what Bill has planned for today, but I don't know if you saw this week who the Washington Capitals, they were in need of a head coach, and I don't know if you saw who they hired as their head coach, but
No.
a former Wheeling Nailers coach and Peter Laviolette.
Oh!
So Peter is now going to be the head coach of the Washington Capitals, and the NHL, of course, has 1 year here in Wheeling, which was the 97-98 season. He led the Nailers to the Eastern Conference Finals, where they lost to the eventual champion that year, the Hampton Roads Admirals. So Peter Laviolette back in coaching and with the Washington Capitals, so good for him.
Certainly has made a name for himself after, while he was here, but certainly after moving on from here, made a big name for himself. I remember after his 1 year here, and he got, where did he get an offer to go to right after he left here? Where did he go?
He went to, I believe, up to Wilkes-Barre, and then from Wilkes-Barre, he's been in the NHL with Carolina,
Yeah.
Philadelphia. He's now with Washington. There may have been one that I'm forgetting before that, but I know Carolina and Philadelphia.
I remember the ownership, the local owners at the time had said, we could hold him to his contract. You know, he's got a contract here. We don't have to let him go. But how could we hold someone back who wants to move on to a higher level? And clearly that was the right thing to do. As a good thing to do as a human being. But Peter Laviolette has certainly made his way around and made himself known. No, I did not see that. So he's going to be coaching the Capitals, huh?
Yeah, the Washington Capitals. So Washington's in for a. They're going to get a coach who, he doesn't take nonsense. Let's just put it that way. That's a nice way of saying what I want to say, but yeah, he'll be a good coach for Washington, and kind of sad that he's going to Washington, being that most of us around here are Penguins fans. So that'll make those meetings next year, if there is a next year, eventful. Let's say.
Yeah, it always makes it interesting though when you have a former player or a former coach who's now on an opposing team, and everybody kind of goes, well, I kind of want Peter to do well, but I'm a Pens fan. So that always makes it fun. And staying in the sports arena, Ohio State football is back, as well as the rest of the Big Ten. I did not think this was going to happen, and I had arguments about this with some people. But again, what do I know? Clearly, I was wrong. The Big Ten Conference has reversed their earlier decision. They were going to postpone all the fall sports until spring, but they have now decided Big Ten will play during the pandemic. The football season will begin the weekend of October 23rd. Ohio State is the one of particular interest to us because we are an Ohio State football affiliate. Penn State, Michigan, Iowa, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Purdue. They've all been hearing from their coaches and their players and their parents and their fans who felt the Big Ten had made a mistake in suspending play. So they're going to play beginning October 23rd. Big Ten, in making the announcement yesterday, said they'll have significant, I quote here, significant medical protocols, including daily testing, enhanced cardiac screening, and an enhanced data-driven approach when making decisions about practice and competition. Daily testing will begin on September the 30th. The game plan, some pun intended there, the game plan is each team will play 8 games in 8 weeks, with the Big Ten championship game on December 19th. But we'll have to wait and see how this whole thing plays out. More conversation about that tonight, as I mentioned, on the Coaches Show, the Ohio State Coaches Show, beginning at 8 o'clock on WVOY, AM 1370, FM 98.1, and on your TuneIn radio app. So you want to check into that, get more info from the coach today. We were going to have the Coaches Show anyway, but it was supposed to be just one of those, well, let's talk about the season we're not going to have. Now it's going to be talking about the season that we are going to have.
And what they're going to do in the Big Ten is they're going to be split into the two divisions that they normally were. So the top two teams in each division, that's going to be your Big Ten championship game, which is going to be Week 9. And then they're just going to go down and pair everybody else that way in the divisions. And then they'll have their, that's how they'll do it.
And they're planning, as I said, to have things wrapped up by December the 19th. That will be their Big Ten championship game, which is important because December 20th is selection day for college football.
Yeah,
so they'll get it done just in time.
Yeah, that's to see who will play. I guess they're going to have now the national championship this year, so that'll be the day before they pick the 4 teams to see who gets to play for the national championship.
So catch your coach, whoever your favorite one is tonight. 6 o'clock, it is on both of our stations, the Neil Brown Show. And then at 8 o'clock on AM 1370, FM 98.1, it's the Ryan Day Show. So a lot of sports. And I didn't think we'd have a lot of football to talk about, Biffy, but turns out we're going to have plenty of football to talk about.
Yeah, and I think, talking with my Ohio State and Michigan friends, yes, I do have Ohio State and Michigan friends being from Notre Dame. After talking with them, they kind of got the feeling that, this was going to happen. And they had a real good feeling that it was. And hey, I'm happy to see it. It's more we can watch now.
Yeah, absolutely. So things are, we'll see how it all goes. I hope all goes well. We'll find out. Of course, now it means there's more for you to bet on, huh? Right? More things for you to bet on. Want to take some bets on Ohio State, for example? You can do it now through, what they can use, Biffy?
FanDuel
Sportsbook, their world-class sports betting app, is ready and waiting for you, my friends. FanDuel makes it easy to find and to place your bets, even if you're not used to betting. The app is pretty simple, intuitive, and easy to use. They have great odds, some of the best you'll find anywhere. They're always playing around with the odds, boosting them up certain days with certain events and so on. And they even get you your winnings in as little as 24 hours. Now, that is right there, plenty of reasons for you to try FanDuel Sportsbook if you like to do some betting. But here are a couple of more reasons for you to take advantage of it right now. Right now, new users can place their first bet on FanDuel Sportsbook risk-free and get up to $1,000 back in site credit if you don't win. What that means is you place your bet, whatever bet you choose to place, straight money line wager, you want to play one of the other games or what have you, with some restrictions. But basically, you place the bet, whatever bet you want to place, and if you win, you win. That's great. The money is yours. Go home, be happy. But in the event you were to lose your first bet, you get the money put back into your account in site credit, and you have 7 days where you can bet again with essentially the same money. That's a pretty good deal. You may want to take advantage of their football double-up promotion right now, which is available to all customers. It's available all season long. You place a pre-game money line wager, and if your team scores more than 35 points, 35 or more points, you get double your winnings. So you pick your winner, and if your team wins by 35 or more points, you get double your winnings. That's a pretty good deal. Go see for yourself why FanDuel is the #1 sportsbook app. Download it to get started. Sign in with my name, Monroe, in the promo code box, MONROE. That way they know that we sent you here from the Watchdog Morning Show. And I must remind you that you must be 21 or older. You must be present physically in West Virginia. This risk-free deal involves your first online real money wager only. The site credit is non-withdrawable. You can't take it out in cash, but you can use it again for another bet. And it does expire in 7 days. There are some restrictions. Check them out at sportsbook.fanduel.com. And if you have problems with gambling, don't bet. Instead, pick up the phone and call 1-800-GAMBLER, or on the internet, it is www.1800gambler.com. FanDuel Sportsbook, more ways to win. We'll talk to Brad McElhenney coming up next hour about the latest from the governor. That's coming up, plus a few other odds and ends I want to get to. But first, I want to get to headlines from ABC. They're here right now at 9 o'clock.
The Watchdog is FM 98.1, AM 1600 WKKX Wheeling, FM 97.7, AM 1370 WVLY Moundsville.
The ABC News is brought to you by Thomas Auto Centers, Mall Road, St. Clairsville. Get the best deal at Thomas Auto Centers.
ABC News.
All right, Biffy, going to go get some more coffee. I'll be back in a minute. And Brad should be on at 9:10. Let me know. And when he calls, tell him that I saw his note about 9:30. I'll get him off in plenty of time.